Good morning. What am I hung up on?
It's hung up on your
Oh dear. Welcome to this week's Dharma Talk. And thank you for joining us here at beautiful Bali Rica in Costa Rica and on the internet. This morning, for our opening meditation, let's just enjoy sitting together in stillness and silence for about 3 minutes. It's a beautiful day. And in our neighborhood, we hope in yours, and then we'll get to the talk. So if you'll ding us in again and time us just 3 minutes, just a short enjoyment of peace and quiet. Okay, everybody settle and relax now. A few weeks ago, we were having a discussion after the talk, and the question came up, what is Buddhism anyway? And I started to answer it, and then other things came in, and Jeff suggested later, go back to that question. It's very confusing for a lot of people. They start to practice and study, and they're like, what am I doing here? I mean, what is this really? Is it a religion? Is it a science? Is it a philosophy? Is it simply a very, very old self-improvement program? What? Okay, we'll start with religion. Yes, it's a religion, and no, it's not. It's a religion in the sense that it is the one. It is considered one of the five major religions of the world. But it is not a religion because it can be practiced openly in a secular way, because it is non-theistic in the meaning of theistic as being an anthropomorphic, otherwise known as human, form of the divine. There is no creator God. Okay, there is energy, but there is no dogma in Buddhism. Buddhism is the only one of the five major religions that is not fully formed with dogmas, that being authoritarian beliefs that you must accept in order to be that religion. An example of that, personal example of that, was I for years said I had a spiritual dual citizenship. I'd been brought up a Christian. I'd gone to all Christian schools. I had taken Christian confirmation classes and all that, but I really loved Buddhism. So I did both. I had no problem with it until the pastor of the church I was attending came and said, "You can't be here because you cannot claim to be a Christian, so you're not welcome." And I said, "Well, how is that?" "Because you are not a Christian unless you accept Christ as your Lord and Savior. Nobody else. Nothing else." So I said, "Well, okay, that's a bit of dogma that really hadn't bothered me until this moment because, you know, but, if you want me out, I'm out." So anyway, that's it. An even stronger version of that. That's just sort of an intolerant pastor, but it is true. You profess to be a Christian and you join being a Christian by accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior. I'm sorry about my throat. Even stronger, however, in terms of dogma, is Islam. Sharia law is brutal as a social conductor, and is far more strenuous and strict than Christian theology does. So that's it. So you can have a totally secular point of view on Buddhism. The Buddha was not, thank you, golden point. The Buddha was not a Messiah. He did not come to save anybody. He came to teach, and he was a human teacher who lived a human life. But instead of having a creator God, you have creator energy. And Buddhism is neither agnostic nor atheist. It just simply isn't any of that. It's a believer in divine energy, which flows through everything. And there are several differences once you begin to study it. Actually, I think everyone here knows this, but we'll review it. That are quite different. The non-theistic practices are one of them. But there are other rites and rituals that are different and just different outlooks. But in the East, Buddhism is a practiced religion. In other words, it not only has the belief in the teachings of the Buddha, it doesn't push them on anybody, but it does have rites and rituals for weddings, babies, funerals, all kinds of things. We don't have the rites and rituals so much in the West, but we have the same beliefs in energy, and in nonviolence, and so on. So that's one thing. It's up to you how far you want to go with it and whether you consider it that or not. The next thing is it a philosophy? Yes and no. It definitely in the West is more of a philosophy than a religion. But philosophy brings to mind a pretty much an intellectual and academia way of going about thinking about things. It does not have as much heart to it as Buddhism does. But you can consider it your philosophy. And of course, any philosophy is a philosophy, and no philosophy is a philosophy. We all have one way or the other. So this is strictly up to you. And there are people who are really, they just want to be intellectual Buddhists. They tend to go to certain areas in Buddhism. But it is a philosophy and a way of life. The third is it a science? Now you have yes. It is very definitely a science of the mind, particularly. It is the first and the greatest and the most in tune study of the human mind that's ever been made by any group of people, and it is the basis for all modern psychology now, as well as a lot of artistic endeavors and so forth. So there's a little thing, I've read it here before, and it's about Albert Einstein, who, if you study his spiritual work, which is, there's a great deal of it, he did a lot more than split the atom. Uh, uh, he's totally Buddhist if you read what his spiritual writings are about, but he never would say he was one. However, he did say it in many lectures, and this one was recorded and is kept, and it'll give you an idea. Okay, honey.
Okay, so Albert Einstein. The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend personal God and avoid dogma and theology. Covering both the natural and the spiritual, it should be based on a religious sense arising from the experience of all things natural and spiritual as a meaningful unity. Buddhism answers this description. If there is any religion that could cope with modern science needs, it would be Buddhism.
There's a book, I'm not going to read out of it, but I brought it along in case anybody wanted to look at it. To give you an idea, there are a number of these books. It's called Einstein and Buddha, or Buddha and Einstein. Yep. And this has all the different, a lot of quantum physics in here. But we know the history of religion and science has been an antagonistic one on both sides. Science didn't think much of religion, and religion definitely did not like science. So everywhere from the beginning, and there's all kinds of prejudices and problems. So this is a very important point. You will notice if you just study what we look at. Sorry about my throat. It's a rigorous investigation of any subject in Buddhism. It's not just a surface thing. He gets down to the finest points. And so just the method of operation, if you had no other interest in the sciences of it, is to notice how he proceeds to investigate all of the philosophical questions are done in scientific procedural ways. We talked about the Four Noble Truths and how one thing leads to another, and they're presented as if by a doctor. And they cover, one thing after another. First, the very first thing is awareness. always in Buddhism. The second is investigation, careful and inclusive. The third is choice, and the fourth is action. And that's what your four noble truths are set up as. So there's that. That's religion, yes and no. Philosophy, yes, really, but no in terms of other philosophical endeavors to take precedence. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. The third, of course, is what we just talked about, and science. And I really think that all three of them fall into the same, what I would think of if I really got down to it, as liberal or progressive thinking. It's like out in the open, it's here. Uh, Jeff and I both like Thich Nhat Hanh's saying, "This is Buddhism. Here is happiness. Please help yourself." So it is a self-help program that goes way back in history. You take from it what you want, you leave what you don't. It does not matter to Buddhists whether you take it only as a way to lead a kinder, gentler, quieter, more peaceful life, or whether you carry it to very extreme science, the spiritual aspects, for example, of quantum physics, which is a big topic. So it is what you make of it, and it makes something available, literally, for all of us. But we have been studying the Third Noble Truth, and that is choice. And that is based on one simple sentence: pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. You do not have to suffer if you choose not to. That's a pretty extreme statement. It's not easy to live by. But I think everyone who practices it finds that it really is helpful when you have a very bad time in your life, and everybody has them, with divorces and deaths and, financial disasters and all the rest of it. A friend told me just this past week, if I hadn't started going to the Dharma classes, I don't think I could have made it through the last few months. I'm just calling on it every day because she's going through a hard time. And I think this is very true. But I did this to begin with as just sort of a break point between the third noble truth and the fourth noble truth. Because the fourth noble truth is the one that tells you this is how we do it. This is how you can do it. You can take it, you can leave it, you can play with it, you can do whatever you want to with it. But his first discourse says, right view and wisdom are framed in the study of the Dharma by the Four Noble Truths, which is why we stick so close to them. Because whatever you need in the smorgasbord, you're going to take some point in what you want, and you're going to frame it with the knowledge that you have gone through to study the truth of suffering, the truth of the causes of suffering, the possibility of the cessation of suffering, and the Eightfold Path itself. The first step on the Eightfold Path is right view, which is also known as right understanding, right perception, right perspective. The Buddha is associated with science as well by the fact that he really said, wait a minute, reality is relative. Things are real depending on where you're standing and looking at them. And that turned out to be quite a scientific endeavor in and of itself. But the Eightfold Path, real quickly, there are 8 steps. They're divided into three segments. The first two steps are right understanding, right perspective, right view. That's one. The second is right intention. These two are known as the wisdom steps. The next three steps are right speech, right action, and right livelihood. These are ethical steps. This is morality, behavior. It does no good to intellectually be a wise man and then be a crook. You have to bring them together. And the third section, which is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, are the meditation steps. That's where you take it into your head and put it all together. So for perspectives, the first step, there's several ways that I have brought up here. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's head of the Hayden Planetarium, has done a study for years. They give out a questionnaire when you go to visit the planetarium and you look at the performance, and to find out how people responded to it. And it breaks down very neatly into two responses. They're polar opposites. One group says it made them feel so much more a part of the universe that gave them a sense of being the power of being oneness. The other group said it made me feel so small, so insubstantial. I found it, frightening that the world is this vast. So you have those who are empowered and those who are diminished. And this begins a lot with just how you perceive the world. Albert Einstein, again, said that the first decision we ever make in life, we make probably in the womb, but it is demonstrated very early in life that we either view the world itself as benevolent or malevolent. It's a wonderful world, it's a kind world, it's a generous world, it's a great world, or it's a scary place. It's frightening, it's threatening, and nobody knows why. But people fall into these two categories. There are people who are always afraid of life, who wish to back away from it, to protect themselves from it, to defend themselves from life. And there are those who are totally open to life. They're the Pura Vida people. So when you start to practice and study, one of your first questions is, where do I fit? Where am I in my own outlook on life? Am I a fearful person? Not reckless, but or am I an outgoing person? The introvert, the extrovert, etc., etc. All of that is important because that's going to be your grounding point. So, the Buddha says, you will notice right from the beginning when you start working with perception, the perceptions that people have that cause suffering are that they tend to see the negative rather than the positive. And he uses two examples. One is the example of the wagon with four wheels. Three wheels are operating beautifully, smoothly. They're carrying the wagon just like they're supposed to. The fourth develops a wobble. You don't pay any attention to the three that aren't causing trouble, but boy, you notice that wobble right away. It draws your attention. With the second example is a three-legged stool or a three-legged table or what have you, and one leg is just a little bit shorter than the other two. So it's always a little tippy. Your attention goes to the tippy one. So we need to be aware, awareness being the very first thing. that we have a strong natural tendency to see the negative. Okay? And this is something that we can work on. Not that you have to stop it. You are always going to see the negative. If you're driving on a freeway and there are thousands of cars, you only notice the one that's driving erratically. You notice anything that's out of pattern. But if you tend to be a pessimist, you can consciously train yourself to recognize when you are unnecessarily caught up in seeing nothing but the negative, particularly in people. If you just find that all you really see are the worst things about people and not the best, be aware of it, and then you can handle it some. Does that make sense?
Do you want to hear a psychological trick
Yeah,
for that?
yeah, definitely.
In psychology, there's, and it's maybe not a trick, but it's a practice, and that is, if your natural tendency is to be negative, embrace it for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let it be.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware of it, and then move somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, in interpersonal relationships, if you're with a pessimist, you join them for a minute on that it all sucks.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, the natural movement next is, but it's really good. I have at least one of my two children is a pessimist by nature, and I'm from a very optimistic family. And it took me a while to get this about that child.
Yeah.
And when I did get it, and I joined the suckiness of it, surprisingly, she was transformed into the good things, the positive things, and the things. So that's a bit of a way to work with your mind, is to give it a moment, but don't stay with it. Then you can transform it, because that negative energy can be transformed by the power of our mind.
Absolutely. The other side of that coin are the people who are delusional when it comes to relationships. And they fall in love or what have you, and they see what they want to see, not the reality of that person or that relationship. And they will hold on to relationships and be very upset that they're not working out the way they were supposed to. But they saw only that which they wanted to see. So how do you deal with that side of it? That's the sort of delusional side that says, oh my God, she's so beautiful if you're a guy, or he's so handsome, and they can do no wrong. And then they're horrified when they find out that that's just a person.
Same thing again. You give that the energy that it deserves, and then you move on.
Okay.
Same idea. That whatever is that enticement, don't fight it. Let it be what it is. That is a reality for you. You find them attractive, or they have something about them, or their actions are attractive. Let that be, and then move past it. Move through it and transform it into something that's more realistic about life. That this is probably a human being just like you are. Well, also with yourself.
Yeah.
Same deal. If you have a view of yourself and it's negative,
which most of us have some sort of negative view about ourselves.
This is where it all starts anyway. Then you start with that. You start with the knowledge of it, and then you observe that, and you observe, where has that taken me? That has taken me to wanting to sleep 14 hours a day. Now I have choice. This goes through your observation, and choice that you were talking about, and then I will take action. So I'm going to have somebody set the alarm clock, because this is not where I want to be. So it's even your relationship with yourself. You have to own it before you can release it.
Well, the big problem seems to be that we form habit patterns. According to the Buddha, this is what you really have to overcome when you're working with yourself, is that you can have a perfect conscious understanding of what the problem is, but you fall back. Your habits are deeply ingrained in people. Um, so but I I heard a cute story.
Why don't you share it?
All right, here it goes. Here it goes. This was in a Buddhist lecture. It goes this way. The father goes into the son's bedroom and he says, "Son, it's time to wake up. You got to go to school. Wake up. Get up." The son says, "I don't want to." He pulls the covers up over his head. His father says, "I'm only going to say it one more time. Get up out of there, get dressed, and go to school." He says, "Oh, Daddy," he said, "I don't want to go to school. The kids hate me and it's boring." And his father said, "I don't care. You're 45 years old and the headmaster." Sometimes we need pushing.
Nudging.
Nudging. But this brings up that Buddhism is based on the idea of waking up. Mm-hmm. Wake up. You're a big girl. You're a big boy. You've probably been 90% asleep most of your life. So all of a sudden, it can be scary to see reality. And so anyway, that's what the word Buddha means, the man who woke up. So that's part of the perception. One I used in earlier talks that I think I chose, a good one because it's something that influences all of us, which is the problem of aging. Become aware of the response of yourself and people to aging. They're afraid of it. And they also have formed a materialistic view of themselves as being young and beautiful and desirable. And when that starts to slip and they realize, "Oh my God, I'm starting to get a little wrinkled and show my age and my hair's turning gray and all that good stuff," they get really, really hardcore about trying to push back time and stay young. And it never works. You simply cannot beat time. Time has got you right from Jump Street. Of course, there's no time if you want to look at it that way, but you will age. So you have a choice. Now, here you go with the third noble truth. It's how you look at it. You know right up front that you're not going to win if you fight time. You don't want to end up looking like Michael Jackson, poor baby. And yet I see women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who are already just overdone in trying to stay 30 years old. And it makes it worse, actually. I just heard a song that I'd forgotten by Cat Stevens. He says, "Look at me. I'm old and I'm happy."
Or John Denver turns in his first album a song that says, "It turns me on to think of growing old."
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you.
No.
What'd you say?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's That's Brad.
Do you have another one?
Oh, no, I was going to ask, does anybody here have any background or idea as to when that started happening? Like, was there a time before where people just embraced aging naturally?
Well,
or is this like a tale as old as time?
Do you have an answer to that?
I think it's a tale as old as time, but I have to say it has to do with cosmetics.
Yeah.
with the sale of it's a marketing, it's a money thing.
Yeah.
It's a money thing.
And the second thing happened. In the East, it still is important, your ancestry. They revere elderly people.
Yeah.
And in Western culture, we're like, out. Yeah. So it's a mental thing and a materialistic thing. but it is something that is definitely going to happen, and it's really not so bad. I mean, it's got its
Beautiful.
advantages,
Yeah.
but but there's no point in clinging to something that is changing and going to change, and this is the second, noble truth is the problem of clinging to something. That it's going to age and it's, going to rust and it's going to fall apart and it's going to die. These things happen. And all you're doing is prolonging the unpleasant, if that's you, unpleasant. So that's another viewpoint. You need to step sideways and start looking at the better things. You get to eat earlier. If you live in Florida, you can have dinner at 4 o'clock. There are all kinds of perks. There are many good things. And there's also, I love the line in the Alan Parsons song, "When I am old and wise, bitter words mean nothing to me. Autumn winds will blow right through me." You no longer hold on to grudges and stuff that happened in the past, and you don't really worry about getting older. Those November winds, they just come on through. So it's not bad, except as you think it is, which is what the third noble truth is telling you. It's in your head if you're suffering because you're aging. It's as simple as that.
Can I give you an example?
Yes, please.
So this last week I turned past my 2/3 point.
Oh, what is that, 60?
Well, my goal, I don't know if it will be realistic or not, is
Right.
to make it to 100. It's always been my goal
You
since I
might
was young.
change that. You might decide that's not such.
Maybe who knows? Maybe I'll change it. Maybe I'll change it. It's been embedded for a long time. And on August 22nd, I was exactly 66.666
God, you sound like the devil.
at the spot. Yeah. Well, just ask some people.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I was exactly. It was exactly the 2/3 point to 100.
2/3 point.
Exactly on that day, and so I had a birthday celebration, and my partner said to me, "Well, then we're going to miss December 22nd, right?" And I'm like, "Oh no, this is the year with 2 celebrations."
Oh, okay.
So 2/3 of the way, and when I put it in that perspective, I thought about my first third, and there was a lot of innocent happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle 2/3, the middle third that I've just passed now, was all over the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the last third to be about realistic happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be nice bookends to the middle section that's already happened. And in that perspective, when I looked at it that way, I was like, I'm looking forward to the next third.
Well, the Dalai Lama says he's looking forward to dying because he wants to find out if what he thinks is true is true.
right.
He said, I'm starting to get curious now. But I don't know, where does that put me on the scale? 86.
86, so you're 86 of
And a half.
100. Yeah, so
Out of 100.
86%. You got 14%.
Well, okay, and you were at exactly 2/3.
Yeah, so I have 33%.
Okay, now I got how you
supposedly.
Okay, all right.
There's also a fun teaching with that too. That one of the ones I've learned, and for the first period of our life, we live our life at self at the expense of other. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're selfish, but we become dependent. We become for our food, for everything else. And then as we get older, we get to a certain point where we recognize it's not all about us, surprisingly. Some people don't, but and then it becomes other at the expense of self. So now we're actually going out and doing things on behalf of other people, compensating or balancing.
Serving.
And then we reach a pretty much a 3/4 point where we go through the crux of the story, where everything comes into perspective about what we've been doing, how we've experienced it. And then the latter part of the life, we move into self and other imbalance. And in that self and other imbalance, it's not so much that I'm doing something to make your life better. I mean, I will if I can, absolutely. Or you need to do anything to make me feel happy or make my life better. But I know that you will if you can. and so we just live our life that way. It's more cohesive.
Nice. That's also a nice framework. Really nice framework.
Well, the other part of the wisdom teaching, and the wisdom teachings have many, many moving parts. Again, the Buddha will say everything is that this is the direct path to enlightenment. Enlightenment means illumination. It's spiritual understanding. And you notice it's called right. Well, there is right and wrong, as in, correct and incorrect. And Buddha goes into that. But mainly the word right is a word that was made up to try and cover the many things that are covered in Sanskrit in that word. And the easy ways to say it's something that is virtuously skillful. Okay. But anyhow, the second part, which is right intention, is totally integrated here. And Jeff's going to talk about that more. Give my throat a rest too here. But the intention here is that whatever you do, you're going to direct your energy to the positive side. You got to understand right away that we live on two planes. You have the mundane plane, which is everyday world. This in Buddhism is the relative world versus later we're going to talk about the absolute. It's the conditioned world versus the unconditioned world. And of course, I go over this all the time in loving kindness. The conditioned world says, I don't love you, and you may not. It may thoroughly dislike somebody. But the unconditional world says, I love you anyway. Because we're all part of one world. E pluribus unum, out of the many, one. And Buddhism is known as a non-dual religion or philosophy. Everything is directed in the wisdom teachings to understanding basic things, and then you take them and work with them as you will, but that will take the two sides of coins and give you one coin. And your choice is between which of those two sides you want to be on. It's basically that way. It's not that you straddle first one and then the other. It says that you base your life, let's say, on positive energy and being an optimist and so forth, rather than negative energy, being hateful and mean and nasty and all that good stuff. You don't say that they're both okay. They're not both okay. Not if you're living in a social situation. And we are social animals. If you go to the negative side, you're going to behave in antisocial ways. And we'll go into that when you get to ethics. And if you act in antisocial ways, you cause suffering for yourself and others. The name of this game is to do no harm and to not add to the suffering. I still like that saying. You promote the good, but the thing is you never fight against the evil. You promote the good, you live the good, and all the rest of it. But if you think you can eradicate one side of the coin and still have a coin, you won't. If you have good, you're going to have evil. If you have a door that goes in, it's got to turn around and go out. So it's a little bit like Siamese twins. Everything is connected somewhere. The good, the bad, they're all connected. Up, down, now, then. All those things are connected. And you can't really cut them apart. They're always there. But you can not look at one side. In other words, you can put your focus on one of the twins, but you can't kill the other one. So there is no time spent in Buddhism in trying to eradicate sin. because they don't even have a word for sin. The word for sin, that's the closest thing, is ignorance. The Buddha did have what may be a naive belief that if people actually clearly saw the benefits of being good, that they would then work that way. And sometimes they don't. So that's a little bit of a possibility on his side. But is everybody clear that there's conditional and there's unconditional, and you live on the two of them? There also is the mundane world in his discourses. The mundane is the worldly world. This is the world in which you work and play and market and do all the everyday things. Sometimes we call ourselves everyday Buddhist or everyday Dharma group. This trying to coping with life itself. Okay, so that's the mundane world, and then Buddha says we also have this super mundane world, which is moving up a step, which is just like unconditional. This is where the spirit comes in. All right, so now you're on another plane, and one of the very best examples of that, which we have done many times, and I think we all love it, is captured in a little poem by Rumi, who was a Muslim, and but it's a beautiful example of what the Buddhists call going beyond. This is what we in the West tend to call transcending, going above. But in the East, it's going beyond. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisattva. Gone, gone, gone beyond, gone completely beyond, enlightened. And this is where all the mundane things are wedded seamlessly with the consciousness of the super mundane world. Okay, are we? I don't know. It's kind of hard to put that one into words, but he says it so beautifully here. So take your time, read it slow. I love to hear this.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep.
So, beyond, out beyond right and wrong, this and that, there is a field on which all humans, by virtue of being human, meet, if they can. And the sad part is too many people can't get to that spot. And you don't have words when it gets to that. You simply have love, which is what he finally comes to. What all spiritual people come to. So that is basically the absolute and the relative, the super mundane and the mundane. And we incorporate all of them. I was talking to Lisa, and she didn't realize, and I don't know that we've ever made it clear here, that the Buddha accepts, and you don't have to. This is one of the things you don't have to accept. But the Buddha accepts the fact that this is only one of the universes. He believes that there are universes and universes and universes. Ours is only one. And it is in the spirit world, when we get into the super mundane world, we get our first glimpses of the fact of a universe, which means one verse. is one not of another set of manys, which is why when we do metta, we say on this plane and every other plane. He believes there are worlds upon worlds upon worlds. But you don't have to believe it because it's non-dogmatic. Buddhists also believe in samsara, which are 6 realms of existence that we come back with rebirth. And we take one or another world on our rebirth depending on our karma, what we've created. Which brings me to another quick subject that's involved in wisdom. If you're going to study the wisdom teachings, there are 2 things particularly that I think you should jump into. One of them is the 3 natural laws that affect everyone and everything. The first we've been talking about is impermanence. Everything changes all the time, and it also stays in the same circle, but it changes. So nothing is permanent. This too shall pass. The second is the law of interconnection, that we are all connected. We can detach, but you can't break the connection. We're all part of one universe. We're going to read a little thing on that again that I've gone over before. So you're on this wheel, and this brings by the third of the natural laws, which is the law of karma. And how we make our choices and what we do with our life result in action. So the actions we take form our character. And our character goes with us. It belongs to us. It goes with us as we go along. We can improve it. We can degrade it. We can do with it what we want. It's interesting that the Buddha ended most of his talks with the words, "Now go and do as you will." He told us to be skeptical. He said, don't take anything on blind faith. It's not yours until you have practiced it and experienced it. And once you've experienced something and you find out it's good, then you can accept it. Or if you don't think it's good, you can reject it. But you try things before you buy them. So be skeptical. Listen to all these talks and read the books and do whatever to try and find your place in your life that resonates with you yourself. And then you're on the road to enlightenment, and we're going to go through all the steps. I'm jumping around here now. But anyway, those are your 3 laws: impermanence, karma, and connectedness. The other thing that the Buddha taught, and we'll quit pretty much here soon, is also expressed by Einstein, which I've read over and over every year that we've done these, because I believe it is the best description of what Buddhism has to offer you as a jumping off point to understanding yourself and life and everything else. And so it's simple, so listen carefully.
A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts, and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. The true value of a human being is determined by the measure and the sense in which they have obtained liberation from the self. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humanity is to survive. Albert Einstein in 1954.
Yeah, and if we're to survive as a species, we're social animals. If we continue to act in antisocial ways, we are setting ourselves up for our own extinction. So that's basically, but he's saying we are limited by our senses. And there's beyond, you've got mundane, which is the senses. You've got super mundane, which is expanding outwards. And then you get to the final part of Buddhism, which I don't try to teach because they say don't try and teach anything that you can't explain to a 6-year-old. And I can't even explain it to a 60-year-old. So, but that is the whole idea of shunyata, which is emptiness, the void, which is everything. It's not empty. It's the opposite of empty. It's where everything is happening. And no self, which is when you go beyond your limited sense that is caught in what he calls a prison of sensory awareness. And you free yourself of those physical things that go with that. Then you're in a world without ego, where it's not about you at all, but it is about you as a true self, which is not patterned by all the things our culture lays on us and that we experience. And as I say, I can't really explain that very well. There are really no words for it. There's no vocabulary for it. And I love Rumi's first slide. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. We have to liberate ourselves. The Buddha calls it self-liberation, or somebody did. Self-liberation, which is that we go through all this and then we're free. And enlightenment says, okay, I'm liberated from the suffering. And with that liberation, I'm experiencing and enduring a lasting happiness, which comes from the truth of having total peace of mind. It's a big, tall order. But you can take on the wisdom teachings, you can take it all the way from deciding how you're going to present yourself to the world, what mask are you going to wear, what dress are you going to wear, suit of clothes, what business will I be in, all those things, to a spiritual world in which sitting on these cushions is an entry point for that. That's where you can begin to get into the spirit world until finally you move to higher ground, to the highest ground, and you are no longer bounded by I, me, mine, and self. So that's the best I can do with that. As I say, there are really no words for it, but right intention, and we're going to turn it over to Jeff for right intention. Right intention has 3 points. And motivation is everything in Buddhism. The first one, now I've lost
Renunciation.
my mind. Your renunciation, I couldn't think of the word. Letting go, which is not clinging to anything. I really liked what I learned just the other day as an expression of that. That faith is really not a matter of holding on, it's a matter of letting go. If you can learn to let go, you can free yourself from so many things. It's goodwill. It's understanding the tenets of being one world, one species, etc., of the universe. And the third is to do no harm, and this includes the hallmark of Buddhism, which is nonviolence. It's very difficult for many people to understand nonviolence. But if you study the lives of people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and the Buddha himself and Jesus and what have you, you begin to understand that is by far the best way to handle life. So, wisdom teachings, 2 of them, right view, right understanding, right perception and perspective, and right intentions. Yours.
Next week.
Is it getting too late? Did I talk too long?
No, it's good. It's good. Next week,
so-
I'm ready for you on the second one with right intention.
You said that you had been working on studying that.
Mm-hmm. I have more study to do, so it's perfect.
Okay.
Should we ask?
Yeah, open up here.
Comments, questions as you listen to this about the beginning of the Eightfold Path, and you really kind of did an overview, and then we highlighted a little bit of where we'll go with the first and second, the wisdom steps in the Eightfold Path. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Yeah.
I just wanted to say this was a really wonderful talk, and I'm really excited to watch the video again and go through it.
Yeah.
Go.
There's a lot here.
Yeah, there really was.
Today.
Well, sort of everything. The wisdom steps are the steps that everything come back to. It's sort of like the parent situation. All of the steps, the ethics and the meditation and everything, they all play back into this.
There's a lot here.
Yeah. Well,
you want to know the last one is developing loving kindness, so why don't we do our loving kindness meditation?
does anybody have anything else to say?
I think everybody looks good.
Yeah. This is what it. Eventually, it can take a long time, but eventually you come back to realizing that one of the choices you have is loving kindness. And it's sort of the supreme loving kindness and compassion. And one of the studies that we do is on the Brahma Viharas. And these are what the Buddha calls the elevated dwellings, the supreme dwellings. People can live in the gutter, they can live in the urban situation, they can learn, you can pick where you want to live. If you want to live on high ground, you're going to dwell in the Brahma Viharas, the most elevated dwellings. And those are four things: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and above all, pulling it all together, is equanimity. So I think that covers everything I kind of wanted to say.
I think we should follow the Eightfold Path with those four.
Well,
I think that would be lovely.
that causality and choice. Okay. Are we ready?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. Please make yourself comfortable. Just let go of everything, including the talk we've just had. Just let it smoke itself away. Take a few deep breaths and get yourself quiet. It all comes down to this: what we wish for ourselves in the world. A long time ago, I decided that if I had to have a definition of love, it would be that love is wanting for the other person what they want for themselves. I see so many people who want their children to do this and be that and the other, and it's not what the child wants. So it's up to us to self-liberate if our culture or anything has taken us away from the sense of self-love, good, healthy self-love. So anyway, we begin with our well wishes. Bring to mind yourself. And say, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, that's equanimity, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. Now bring to mind someone you love. Someone for whom it is just so easy to say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then we move to our neutral person. If you don't know his or her name, just address them as friends. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Then we move from our neutral person to someone with whom we are in conflict. Doesn't matter whether they're living or dead or whatever. It's just somebody that you have trouble with. With all the genuine loving kindness you can bring forth, you expand now into this circle and say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Now we move our hands to our hearts and think of all the billions of people. And right now, our planet is suffering. So many people are suffering. We include them all sentient beings. And we say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And now, let that feeling kind of settle itself, and so we can carry it with us all day, every day. Release our hands. Now put them in our prayer position and say together, go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving mightily. And bowing to the mysteries. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.